Hello and welcome. I'm Melisande Mouwal, publisher of the papers, joined today by Mathieu Barral, Global Head of Partnerships at Checkout.com. So merchants today are navigating an increasingly complex payment landscape. There's multiple rails, there's multiple acquirers, there's real-time transactions, and rising demands for performance and resilience. It's a theme that came through clearly at ACI Worldwide's Payments Unleashed EMEA. Against this backdrop, ACI and Checkout.com recently announced a new ISO acquiring partnership, making Checkout.com's acquiring capability readily available through ACI Payments Orchestration Platform, giving merchants greater flexibility and control. Today, we're discussing what this means for merchants, why orchestration is becoming a strategic priority, and how businesses can boost payment performance while cutting complexity as they scale. So, Mathieu, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for the invitation. Also, I'm very excited to be here today.
Great. Well, let's get started, Mathieu. So as I mentioned earlier, Checkout.com has entered a new ISO acquiring partnership with ACI. What problem is this partnership designed to solve for merchants?
Thanks. I think it's firstly, we're extremely excited by this partnership. We as Checkout.com has been an acquirer for the past 13 years in the UK, Europe, and then expanding globally. One thing that we've discovered is it takes a long time for merchants to integrate us through group procurement systems to make sure the finance team, the compliance team, and etc. is ready. And I think this partnership is allowing us to add, and the partners and ACI's merchant to add a new acquirer, such as Checkout, very quickly, with way less procurement time and integration cycles. And I think this is to help them in one thing that is extremely important. Obviously, there's many points, is authorization rate and performance. Obviously many acquirers always say they have the best performance, but at the same time, proof is in the pudding. You need to demonstrate and be live to be able to optimize optimization. So that's the partnership where ACI is helping us go faster, and through the work that we've done the past few years from very large merchants, we want to prove and help all the customers that are with ACI Worldwide to be able to grow with a pre-integrated Checkout.com and a commercially ready on their platform.
Brilliant. Great. Why are merchants increasingly looking to work with multiple acquirers rather than relying on just one?
I think it's very much not being reliant on one single acquirers. One is performance is everything. Not everyone is performing in every single region, with every single country, with every single bank, and even within the bank, the first 6 digit, which is the BIN, could be different. Some acquirers can be better with others. So I think it's much more, the world is getting even more globalized, especially on the e-commerce side. Companies have much more entities globally, and companies like Checkout.com allow you to have multiple entities globally with acceptance there. So I think the reliance is, one is to create a challenger mode, and I think this is where it's very interesting. Checkout.com has always been the challenger, and we always want to disrupt. And I think competition is healthy, and we're here to be able to, to help our customers approve more transactions. Like, as we say, every basis point does matter, and every basis points of acceptance should matter to our customers, because if they make more volume, they'll make more revenue, and more revenue, it means the entire ecosystem is growing, and their revenue is profiting for that. So I think it gives healthy competition. It allows you to showcase internally, and obviously it allows you to expand internationally. So there's multiple angle to look into multiple acquiring strategy.
Yeah, great. But how does this being pre-integrated into ACI's payment orchestration platform change the merchant experience?
I think it's key. There's many platforms out there that have Checkout.com integrated with other acquirers, and I think it allows just like a very quick technical implementation project. there's no need of trying to push in 6 months and to be included in next year's roadmap, and then in next year's roadmap there's other priorities, and instead of taking 3 or 4 quarters to be integrated, it only takes a couple of weeks. And I think this is that is the key element, because people want to work with Checkout.com, they want to trust us, but at the same time we need to prove it. And being already integrated, getting 1, 2, 3, 5% of the volume at the start to prove our worth, and then after growing share of wallet to demonstrate. So I think technical is the most important element, and the second part is very much commercial time, already pre-negotiated, reducing onboarding time, complexities. I think onboarding is also still something that the pain point of merchants and our customers. They need to send all the documents all the time to multiple providers, and it just takes time. And I think ACI payments platform is helping this reduce time and complexity, and fallback optimization. So they've really managed to create a package that is interesting for customers on a global scale.
Yeah. And I guess it, as you say, it really lowers that entry barrier to try to test, like, additional drivers, and for you guys to prove, that you can disrupt and improve auth rates. Payments Unleashed, the event that was organized last June, heavily focused on orchestration. Why is orchestration becoming critical for merchants at scale?
As I said at the beginning, I think it's extremely important, and we do see an increase of orchestrators. We Checkout.com welcome that. As I say, we are competitors, and if you think you're the best and you're going to compete, then you welcome that, because after we can prove it. So I think there's the complexities in the world in payment world are becoming greater than ever. There's more and more payment methods globally. Every country is doing its own payment method. The new card rails, also the volumes on e-commerce, it keeps growing year over year. So you need to be able to sustain that growth, both on an API side and the new technical projects that the schemes could have, that APM can have, the new regulatory shift that every Europe is doing, APAC is doing, 3DS engines that are also becoming more complicated with ACA frictionless, and etc. So there's a lot of elements that orchestrators are able to abstract some of this complexity, and having multi-rails, multi-payment method, multi-acquire by default is an interesting model for some merchants that are very global. So it allows them to route in real time the transaction, and just reduce certain types of complexity that must be in for your own business, so to help you grow to a certain scale.
Yeah, so it's becoming like a no-brainer for these larger companies to use orchestrations.
Yeah, it helps them. So not every company has unlimited resources when it comes to payments, both on the engineering, on the product side, on the people. And I think, you do want to optimize, and you don't necessarily have the team. And that's where we discover, obviously, every client is different. Some very large companies have very few payment people, and some smaller companies have a lot of payment people. So I think it's very much who dictates the agenda within the company. A couple of years ago, we tried to push for a chief payment officer in every company, and I think it will be extremely relevant. So it's just to abstract some complexities that if you don't have enough people on your team, companies like ACI Worldwide are able to help you go to market much faster.
Yeah, if you can't build it, you buy it. So we talked about auth rates and authorization performance earlier. It's a recurring theme. How does this partnership help merchants approve more legitimate transactions?
To compare, I think there is, you never know if, certain markets, you had 95% acceptance rate. You're like, it's great, I'm at 95. And you realize the next acquire is at 97%. So you're actually missing 2% of the part of the cake. And I think this is where it's interesting. Is comparison is key. Data is everything to make your decision. And the goal of Checkout is to bring a local acquiring depth. We have 19 offices. We have licenses in multiple jurisdictions, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Australia, in the UAE, here in Europe, in the UK, in the US, etc. So in many different jurisdictions, and we do have people that understand those markets and issuer outreach that understand much more how to optimize every single transaction. So it is that's where this partnership can help people just approve more and should be demanding. I think we're in a world with AI and where you're going to be having access to building products around on top of APIs and data that could be happening in 5 minutes. You can know exactly who's the best acquirer, the best performance at what time of the day. And I think this is should be welcome in the industry as something great. Best one wins, and it reduces that thing. And I think one thing that is extremely important is having and to manage those false decline, because obviously fraud is growing at the same time as e-commerce volume, and how to reduce that. So it's very much working with your acquirer to optimize more transaction with the same time not increasing your fraud. So but that's where you really need to have a deep relationship with your orchestrator provider, ACI Worldwide, and your acquirer.
Yeah. And how does this partnership between ACI Worldwide and Checkout.com support merchants entering new markets?
Yeah, I think it's, we provide a lot of local acquiring coverage, as I just mentioned, in many other countries. And we also, we try to innovate and just grow more. And I think that's important, is always try to work with a partner that wants to grow, wants to innovate, and that is not stagnant in terms of innovation, because there will be new markets, new payment schemes that you'll need to integrate. And some markets will become very big in the future. And I think Checkout's growth a lot story was in the UAE, and 10, 15 years ago, no one wanted to do this market. And here we help us signing the biggest brands in the world. So I think the world is shifting. There is a lot of spending that is going to be happening in e-commerce, and not necessarily the core markets, as we call them, but elsewhere. And that's why just understanding those coverage that you need to have, those payment methods you need to have, the regulatory framework, making sure you have the right compliance in place, the right licenses to make sure you go and safe and well safeguarded companies. And I think that's extremely important, just to activate fast, be very, very quick, agile, and a certain flexibility, because to scale, you can't have every reporting that is different. You need a centralized reporting for your finance team that is able to scale if you want to launch in Japan tomorrow, if you want to launch in Australia and Singapore, New Zealand, in Brazil, in Canada, etc. Companies like Checkout.com with the partnership with ACI Worldwide can help you grow your business.
How does adding acquirer diversity improve resilience?
Yeah, I think in the world of a lot of fraud attacks, technological perspective, where some companies do go down, and I think it happens, and the element of making sure your website and your payment page should always be on. You should never, a customer wants to pay, they should be able to pay. And I think this is extremely important, to not have a single point of failure, and to be able to, if an acquirer or a payment provider has issue at that moment, you should be able to fall back in that perspective. And, issues are not always API. Sometimes they've done a change on the risk settings, and you suddenly have one single issuer that has a lot of problem with that specific acquirer, and therefore you have declines only on this specific bank in this specific country. Yes, you don't necessarily see it if you sell in 100 countries with 400, 500 banks, but at the end of the day, this is where basis points matters, is identifying those problems, trying to solve them, and at the same time have resilient until this problem is solved, to make sure we're able to scale globally.
How does this partnership reflect a broader shift in how payment ecosystems are evolving?
I think it's very much the dynamics of the world of payment is changing with maybe stablecoin. Maybe in 5 years' time, everything will be paid in stablecoin. And I think it's a bet, and it's very much trying to bet on where the future is going, both on innovation. So we need to make sure that we are always on top of it. But at the same time, a lot of transactions are still going through traditional payment methods, and we need to make sure we're the best at it. So there is obviously we want to work with agentic commerce, we want to work with agentic payment types but 99.99% of the transactions are still very normal traditional e-commerce. So it's for us to help on this. So this partnership reflects a company that wants to work with the newer type of businesses, a newer type of acquirers that are just there, hungry and willing to do what it takes to serve the enterprise merchants, because I think this is absolutely needed. They keep growing, and in making sure we invest in the infrastructure for this line.
Yeah, and I guess also, now, but also going to the future, there is no single player that solves, that solves basically merchants' issues. You really need this type of partnerships to scale, to have the best performance and resilience in the end.
Yeah, and I still believe in the people element into it. And obviously, we talk a lot about APIs, resilience, but there's also always being a phone call away. And we need to make sure we keep that, and making sure partners like to work with each other. And I think there's no the blame game, and we love partnering with ACI Worldwide to make sure we have a deep relationship and really see this as a trio, the merchant, ACI and Checkout.com, to just service and just to grow their business. So this is where partnership happens, is everyone is happy, part of this ecosystem, to just build for the future of payments.
Great. One last question, Mathieu. If merchants take one thing away from this partnership, what should it be?
I think it's performance is everything. I think this is there's three things I always say. I think is very much payments. Approving of payments is the number one priority for Checkout.com, and should be the number one priority for any companies working in payments. I think that's the one thing that innovation is. I think another part of it is constantly looking over what's new, what's else there, to make sure we're not missing the next trend, because people pay that way, or this new generation wants to pay in this particular way with Apple Pay, with this new payment method. I think it's extremely important to be on top of things with the innovation that's happening. And I think the third thing element is still a people element, is we have issues, let's discuss. We have new product lines that we do. How can you help us be more global? And I think it is a collaboration and a partnership between the merchant, ACI, and Checkout.com to just help you grow the business. And I think it's important for merchant to be part of this journey together.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mathieu, for walking us through this. It's clear that as merchants scale globally, success won't come from any single acquirer or platform, but from the flexibility to combine the best of both. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you to everyone watching.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Great.